Before we start the review, I just want to say if you're interested in checking out these audio dramas made by Big Finish, I've left a link in the description to their website where you can purchase them. Also, in there are links to a couple of videos I've created, sort of a good mix of stuff you'd expect to see on this channel. And while you're down there, please be sure to hit the subscribe button, turning on notifications, liking and commenting. Right, without further ado, let's get into the review. Picking up from the events of Alan Barnes' Storm Warning, we now have Sword of Orion by Nicholas Briggs, voice of the Daleks and the Cybermen. While exploring an alien marketplace, the Doctor and Charlie narrowly avoid getting the TARDIS stolen, only to wind up being involved in a salvage mission on a derelict spaceship where the very aggressive crew soon discover that on board the ship is a platoon of Cybermen waking up from hibernation. Unlike Storm Warning, this was not the first time I've listened to Sword of Orion. I first listened to it about 3 years ago or so, and honestly didn't really enjoy it back then, so when it came to this review I was kind of nervous going into listening it, as I found it quite very slow to listen to, but fortunately on this re-listen I found it to go by pretty quickly and I managed to enjoy it. In terms of the actual story and analysing it, there's not really much to say. It's a very conventional kind of Cyberman story. It's very much indicative of what Nick Briggs will be mostly known for when it comes to his writing style. Not the only type of story he does experiment from time to time, but this is kind of mostly what you're going to get with his stories. As with the previous release, the 8th Doctor and Charlie very much carry this story, as aside from the captain of the salvage team, the rest of the cast aren't really all that interesting and fairly one note. At least in Storm Warning, when they pulled the "always the Doctor a spy" routine, they at least had the twist that him being a spy actually benefited him. Whereas here, it's very much the, they refuse to listen to the Doctor, and it's very annoying hearing them just constantly try and tell the Doctor and Charlie to shut up, despite their attempts to convince the crew that they are of no danger whatsoever.
Oh no! Is that...
Mark Kelsey, you know him?
Is he dead?
Not quite, but you've got to get him to a hospital.
Hospital? We've got a sick bay on the Vanguard, but no medical officer.
You'll have to take him back to that Garazone place.
Who are you people?
Look, never mind that. Just call for help or something.
Oh. Right, don't move.
Please, there's no need.
Shut it! Oh, what the hell have you done? Move back from the body.
I thought you said we weren't to move.
Doctor.
Shut it! Both of you!
Doctor, he thinks we did it.
What? I think there's been a bit of a misunderstanding.
I won't tell you again, murderers. Recon to Vanguard.
Go ahead.
We found Kelsey's body. And the murderers.
What?
We didn't.
He's not dead.
What?
But he soon will be if you don't do something.
Crash, what's going on?
Take your hands off him.
I'm just checking.
Pulse gone.
Yes.
Speaking of the captain, she is definitely the most interesting guest character, as she is really the only one who is prepared to work with the Doctor. However, we soon discover that the reason behind this is her secret agenda that involves the Cybermen, as she is the only one aware that they are on the ship.
Then you're not here to do a deal with the Cybermen?
That wasn't even Earth Security's intention. History has taught them not to trust the Cybermen. I was buying time. Your outrage blinded you.
But your command computer stated...
I'd already confirmed the military value of the Cybermen. My mission was to obtain details of the cyber conversion process.
Her subplot is very much here to set up Big Finish's eventual Cyberman spin-off series. And we get a good bit of universe building as we learn about how humanity is thriving at this point in time and the ongoing conflicts that are occurring behind the scenes during the events of this story.
If memory serves, androids and genetic constructs were outlawed, weren't they, Ike?
Memory? Everyone knows that.
Yes, of course. Although I have to confess we've been a little out of circulation of late, haven't we, Charlie?
I suppose you could put it like that, yes. Yes.
Something strange about you two, isn't there? Why are we talking about the Orion War, anyway?
Bear with me, Ike, bear with me. So the androids were outlawed.
They outlawed themselves, if you ask me.
What do you mean?
Well, it started getting, uppity, demanding rights, saying they were as good as people, real people.
Heaven forfend.
Then they started forming their own tribunals, producing reports on maltreatment of non-human employees.
And this led to a war?
Yeah, Earth authorities told them to pack it in or face the consequences. There were some ugly scenes, demonstrations, riots. The trouble was, when it all kicked off, the military had no way of telling the difference between people and androids.
As for the Cybermen themselves, Nick Briggs does a pretty good job with the voice, as he usually does. It's a very different kind of voice, these early Cybermen, as it's kind of a mix of the 80s voices, while also a more unique sound that we don't really see much as time goes on. He kind of goes for the more invasion style voices in subsequent releases, but in terms of what they end up doing in the story, they don't really have that much to do. We cut to the cyber leader and his sort of lieutenants quite a bit from part 2 onwards as they try and get their plan in operation.
A force has been assembled, leader. They must board that ship. The humans are to be captured for conversion. Contact has been established with the Cybermat. It has sustained considerable damage and has lost offensive capability. It will be programmed with new instructions.
However, aside from a few silent grunts, which only serve to be used in action scenes, the Cybermen don't really get a chance to interact with the cast, especially the 8th Doctor, until right at the end of the story.
This moral discussion is irrelevant.
Yes, all moral discussion is irrelevant to you, so just listen for a moment.
Secure him.
Let him go!
Silence. Take these humans to the conversion chamber. The Doctor will be frozen.
What about the Earth Alliance's proposition?
It is meaningless.
Listen to me, I have a counter proposition.
You have a proposition?
Something a little more practical and logical.
That is not possible. You are emotional, weak, inferior.
And we're all about to be blasted into oblivion by another ion storm. Perhaps it's the same one come back to finish the job. I say I have your attention.
Which is kind of the main selling point of this release. The fact that it's the 8th Doctor meeting the Cybermen. I think if you're looking for a better story with the 8th Doctor and the Cybermen, definitely go for the later release, The Silver Turk, which is a bit more interesting. I mean, if you've seen Haunting of the Villa Diodati, you get a good idea of what that story is going for, but it takes a fairly different direction. This is very safe. It's kind of a mixture of Earthshock and Alien. It's enjoyable, but you're not really going to get much out of it. It's a very early release, remember, and I think the main selling point was seeing Paul McGann versus the Cybermen, and it was kind of rushed, I think, and not really given much chance to do something all that interesting. But if you enjoy it, that's fair enough. I found it quite refreshing this time around, and who knows, maybe in future listens I might get more out of it. And I haven't really had a chance to listen to the Cyberman spin-off yet, so I don't know how much it plays into that overarching story, but it's a good setup, I guess. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know what you thought of it, and I'll see you next week for the third story, Stones of Venice.